to Monday's little workout. As promised on Facebook and on the newsletter yesterday, said I was going to do something different for you tonight. I've been promising it for a while, so I thought I'd get around to it. And that was a bit of a look at various foam rollers, what they are, how we think they work, because I'll be honest, we don't really 100% know. We have some theories and I'm going to go through those with you. How you might choose the right ones, etc. And also the guidelines, how long to do it for, how intense it should be, which ones to do, and some ideas for targeting different muscles and areas of the body to loosen things off. Let's start by having a quick look at the different ones. So you've got all sorts of foam rollers. This is one of my older ones. It's a really large sort of solid piece of foam, but it has, if you can see it on the camera at all, has got a bit of give in it. So it's a much softer piece of foam. You can get even softer ones that are kind of like white, look like a bit sort of like a firm polystyrene. Really good ones to start you off because it can be uncomfortable, as you'll find out. And also really good if you've just got incredibly tender spots. So if you've got anything that feels really tight, you don't have to go mad, you can start with something like this. Then you've got the sort of the traditional foam rollers that everybody knows. This one's one of my favourites because again it has got a bit of give in here, and the knobbly bit, so to speak, they're not too sharp and spiky, they're not too solid. So it's good, it gets a lot of tension in there, but it's not too painful. Then you've got these really rock solid ones. This one almost feels like solid plastic on the outside. You've got to be pretty used to it with this and be able to tolerate it. And also, my advice really, you've got to be doing it for a while and conditioned yourself with some of the softer stuff and got used to the discomfort of it and actually loosened off some of the really tight spots before you progress onto things like that. So we're definitely not going to be using him tonight. And then a few different sort of variations. This one's a really nice one, it's called the Orb. Again, it's a sort of same sort of density as this orange one, but it's sort of lawn green ball sized ball, if you like, just because it's a bit smaller than some of these. It allows you to target some of those areas a little bit more deeply. And then you've got the other things that you see, like this black one here, which is rock solid, a bit like sort of lacrosse balls, or some of the ones that you've got with the wound fabric around that are really good for getting deep into the tight, smaller areas where it's hard to feel it with some of the larger surface areas of the foam rollers. How do they work? Well, they all do the same thing, even though they're different sizes and shapes. They all work on something called SMR, or self-myofacial release. It sounds fancy. All it means is self, obviously, is do it yourself because you're doing it. And the myofascial, myo, if you ever hear that, always means muscles. So myo in any term just means muscles. So we know it does something to the muscles. The facial bit means it does something called your fascia or your fascia. And your fascia is kind of like this, it's almost like a spider's web that envelops the whole interior of the body, and it wraps together and binds together all of your muscles, all of your different tissues. And quite a few years ago, we just didn't really have a clue about this stuff. Now we're starting to learn a lot more about it. We're learning that not only does it connect it all, but it's also got sort of different properties that are a bit more similar to muscles. What we do think from some of the research is that by doing some of this foam rolling, it helps to unglue some of the stickiness and some of the knots that can appear in that fascia that can make things feel tight and make you feel immobile, basically. So you can almost feel like your muscles are flexible, but you can't move very well. It could well be the fascia, and this stuff, this movement and this rolling around the fascia just helps to almost act like a rolling pin and roll it out and unglue some of the sticky areas. That's one of the theories. One of the other big theories is that the rollers work on some of the receptors that you've got in and around the muscles and underneath the skin. So you've got a few different types. You've got receptors that detect pain. You've got receptors in and around the muscles that detect how long they are, how lengthy they are. And you've got other detectors in and around the muscles that detect how much tension there are in the muscles. We know from some fancy types of stretching, if anyone's ever heard of PNF, I won't go into the detail on that, but if you've ever heard of that, we know that we can trick some of those receptors into helping us loosen off the muscles, and it appears that we might be able to use the pain receptors and those Golgi tendons and those muscle spindles and all the fancy names that we got for them to help trick the body essentially into loosening off the fascia as well as the muscles. So those are the sort of two main theories. And then there's some other sort of ideas that actually just rolling the muscle, A, increases the blood flow to it, so it gets it moving And a bit increases the temperature. It acts like friction and it warms it up. And we know if a muscle is warm and there's heat in it, it's going to be more flexible. The same might be true of fascia as well. So those are the main ideas of how it works. In terms of when, because we know it's good at possibly warming them up and making them more flexible, before a workout is a great time to do foam rolling. Most people don't realise that. I actually tend to do all of my foam roller work before a session, just because it helps me feel a lot more mobile. Research shows it keeps your muscles more mobile for a good 20 minutes or so. And if you can use that to start the workout well and get extra heat into the muscles, I just feel like I move a lot better. Others use it after a workout, and there is some research that it helps to protect and prevent or to minimise some of the muscle soreness that you feel in the days immediately after the workout. So you could use it before and after. It really depends what you're targeting for. As I said, most of mine is about before, so that my workout is better quality, so that I don't feel so tight and achy on a run, and that if I'm doing squats and things like that, I just feel like I move a hell of a lot better. But if you want to do it afterwards, when you've got all that, those byproducts and the lactic acid in the muscles, it's a pretty cool way of doing it. Anyway, enough about the sciencey bit. Let's get into some actual workout stuff for you. So the guidelines I'm going to give you on is pretty much the same as we'd use for any of your stretching workouts. So we're going to spend anywhere between sort of 30 and 60 seconds working on an area if we really want to develop it. Maybe as little as 15 to 30 seconds if you just feel a little bit of tightness in there. And just like a stretch, we're always going to do it to mild discomfort. People think that this thing has to be like a pain factory, like you've got to push yourself to the depths of despair, and really it doesn't. You just want to get to a point where you get that moderate and mild discomfort, and I'm going to show you how. So we're going to start off working from the lower body and work our way up. I'm actually going to start with the feet because they're a really nice area to do. The balls are brilliant for them, but you can do them with the rollers as well. If you've got the more targeted ones like the ball, you can sit and you can just literally roll into the arch. But with the standard roller, it's a little bit harder because it's bigger. You might want to essentially just rest your hand against the wall and just get the weight of the arch on top and just roll backwards and forwards. As with the stretches on this, the key on this is to listen to your body. So if you feel any tight, achy spots, try and focus on working around those. But I'm just rolling back and forth here through the arch of the foot for a good 15, 20 seconds or so. Like I said, if you really want to get deep into it, you can spend as long as 30 to 60 seconds. But it should never be painful. You should never be holding that grimace in your mouth, and your face shouldn't be all tensed up with pain. It should just be uncomfortable, really. You try and breathe normally as you do it, and you try to keep it a fairly slow control pace. If you do find a tight spot, you can hold it there and work around it a little bit more. There you go. So if you've got that and you've done that, you switch to the other side. I'll show you with the ball on the other side, just because you can see how you can just get that little bit more side into it. But if you've got the roller, just keep using that. So with the ball, you can do the forwards and backwards, but you can also just get yourself into sort of circles and figures away and just find those tighter spots. I find I get a lot of tension in the arches of my feet from the running and the cycling. So it's just a really good way of increasing the flexibility down in all the toes and just taking the tension out of them really when I'm running. There you go. So again, roll it around, find any tight spots, anything on the sides, maybe just below the toe line. The big toe is a big one for me. It just always feels a bit gristly because obviously it's where a lot of the impact comes in. And then after you've done that, ease them down. So we're going to build up from there into the calves, bring yourself down to the floor. You can do these 2 calves at a time or 1 calf at a time. Let's move these out of the way. So I'm going to show you 1 calf at a time. So we're literally going to put the belly of the calf muscle on the top. This is where it's quite a physical workout because you're going to use your hands to control the weight and the force that's going down through the roller. So the more you push down with that leg and you lift your body up in the air, the more force and more weight's going to be going through that roller, and the more uncomfortable it's going to be. If you can cope with that, great. But if not, get your bum down on the floor and just take the intensity and the pressure out of the roll. The other thing you can do, obviously, you can slide yourself backwards and forwards so you can get that full length of the calf. And you can change the angle, so you can tilt the toe out and hit more the lateral, the outside of the calf muscles here. And then if you can't find any particularly tight spots there, you can roll the leg in and just hit the inner portion of that calf. I know for me that one of my biggest tight spots is just here, just on this outside, just above the back of the knee. So I'm going to find it and I'm just going to roll up and down, just really targeting it there, just to get deep into that calf muscle. Again, not too discomfort, you can see I'm not grimacing, I'm not in too much pain. It doesn't have to be torture to be effective. There we go. Whilst we're there, what we're going to do is we're also going to target this big shin muscle here on the front of the side. Its posh name is tibialis anterior, which sounds fancy, but tibia just means shin, anterior means in front, so it's the muscle that sits in front of the shin bone basically. The way we do that is we tilt our weight so that the front comes on here, and it's an awkward one because you're going to use your body weight, but you're keeping your hands here, and you're just rolling that shin forwards and backwards over the top. If it's not too intense, you can get some more weight into it. As I said, it's quite physical, the act of holding the moves on it. You can just literally roll the leg onto the side like this, and you don't have to look like you're doing a break dance. But as long as you can find a comfortable angle to get into that muscle, that's fine. As I said, the more pressure and weight you put through it, the deeper the stretch into those tissues, or rather the relaxation into those tissues through whatever mechanism we talked about earlier. We're not completely sure, but we know it has a benefit. I can certainly tell you that I feel amazing after 20 or 30 minutes of foam rolling. The muscles definitely feel like they work better, and I feel like I move a lot better too. There you go, easy down on that side, and then we'll swap them around to the other leg. So left calf on, or whichever calf you've not done. Again, start with the belly of the calf, and you can slide forwards and backwards. The other little trick, by the way, is the surface. So this is a good centimetre thick foam. It's quite soft, so it takes some of the cushion, it absorbs some of the pressure going down. So if you don't want it to be too painful, start on a nice thick bit of carpet or a nice thick mat, and actually you won't feel too much tension in there. If you transition it to a solid stone floor, or some lino, or something that doesn't have much give, then you'll notice it a hell of a lot more. But you can progress up to that as you go. So again, just working backwards and forwards, just rolling inside and out, feeling for any tight spots. Again, I know on my left leg here, there's some tight spots down just above the back of the ankle, so I can do a little bit of rolling around on there. But we're really looking, as I said, 30 seconds, maybe up to 60, just working through it. And again, as before, I know this outer portion here is just where I can feel that big difference. From there, shift your weight round so you can get that shin onto it, and just roll it backwards and forwards. And again, if you're using one of these, much easier in many respects, because you can just get that weight onto there and really get deeper into those muscles. Because they're smaller, they're just getting the gaps a little bit better basically. So this one I can really feel the difference compared to the roller itself. Just really working into those tight spots. There you go. Sometimes you'll feel it flicking across where the tendons or the muscles are tight. It's just a nice way of loosening them off from there. There you go. Ease them out from there. And then we'll work up the body a little bit more. So I'll go back to our traditional one. For your hamstrings, again, hard to really get deep into the hamstrings with these. These things are good because they can get deeper into the muscle, and that's often what you find is most effective. If you don't find that you feel it that much, see if you can progress onto one of the balls. But for simple, one leg bent, other leg up so you weights. Use those hands again, elbows soft, and just roll back and forth, and just feel for any tight spots. If you can't, you can roll that leg out of it, and again, I know me, it's here. There, just that really tight spot, just towards the outer portion on the upper thigh. There we go. That's that really tight spot for me. You might find it a little bit more on the inside of the leg, so again you might want to roll that foot in. But just working through, just feeling for where it feels a bit gluey and a bit sticky. You'll notice not once has my face looked like I'm stabbing myself with 1,000 needles. It should just be mildly uncomfortable. And as I said, if it's not, add more padding. Softer roller, more padding, get to that mild discomfort. Awesome. Whilst we're here, I'm going to shift everyone's favourite, so this little band that runs down the side of the leg known as your iliotibial band or your ITB. Gets very, very tight, especially in runners, cyclists and desk workers. It actually runs from hip to knee, and it can tighten up a bit like a sort of corkscrew effect. So when we shift our weight laterally onto it like this, you might want to use both hands to take some of the weight out and then just roll back and forth so you're not putting too much pressure into it. If you can't feel it or you want to get deeper into it, you can come down onto the elbow and you can really push that leg down into the roller, but you just roll it back and forth through there, finding those tight spots. Oh, there we go. And then ease them out. Swap to your other leg, because obviously we don't want you walking around in circles later. And then work that hamstring through on the other side. It's quite a nice one. Just turning that foot in and out again, same as before. Just see if you can find any particular tight spots. And as with me on the other leg, it's just that upper back of the outer thigh. That's where I feel the real tightness. And also if I get right in here, just underneath the glute, underneath the bum, there's a tight spot in there that I can work around and just gently massage into it. It acts in a very similar way to massage really. We're just manipulating the tissues to just unglue them a little bit. There you go. And then from there we're going to hit the axle of that thigh if it feels okay to do it. As I said, remember, take more weight out of it with your hands if you want. If not, push more weight into it and you'll get deeper into it. If you've got both feet in the air like this, then you can get a really deep push into those muscles and those fascia. There's not actually much in the way of muscles down the side here. It is all fascia and connective tissue, but it's a really good way of ungluing it a little bit. There we go. There's my tight spot just there. And then ease them out. Right, couple more for the lower body, and then I'll show you a few upper body ones as well, because it's useful to have. So, your quads, the big muscles at the front here, right away from the knee, all the way up into the hip, and actually you can go a little bit higher on these. Again, you can do both legs at the same time, so you can literally just pop it down, get yourself almost into like a plank position, so you're going to pull your belly button in, because we don't want any banana backs. So you've got that nice straight spine, and just roll forwards and backwards through those thighs. Mild again, same as before. You can tilt to one side like this, target the inner portion of one thigh, outer portion of the other at the same time. And I feel a lot of tight spots in these. They do a lot of work in everyday life. They do a lot of work in cycling, running, weightlifting, you name it. They're the big powerhouses of the body. So they're worth spending some time on. And then I'll turn the other way and just give them a bit of a roll through there. And again, I can feel some real tender spots through here. So I'm just mildly working through. There you go. As I said, if you want to get a little bit deeper and more into the hip flexor and even into where the abdominal muscles are here, you come a little bit higher sort of onto one side and just roll through here. This again works really well with the smaller balls because you can get to those targeted deeper muscles a lot more easily. But if you tilt yourself onto a bit of a side angle and roll through here, actually my biggest discomfort there is that's when I've got my microphone attached, so that's quite painful. For no other reason than it's where the mic is. There we go, so tender spot there. And then if I spin onto the other side, you'll see again, so I'm kind of opening my body up, sort of 45 degrees here, hip right onto the top, working through that hip, because it's some quite tender spots in there. As you said, those hips get really tight because, think about it, if the legs are bent all down, we're sat under a desk, the hips are folded up, so they can get pretty gluey. So this is just a nice way of working into, and again, if we carry on going up just above the waistline, up into the abdominal itself, the hip flexor attaches right up onto the side of the spine up here. So it's a really good way of getting right into those tight spots. And if I do it there, I know I found a tender spot. As always, the neighbour's cat is staring through the window. I'll see if I can show you before the end of the session, because she's always stalking us through the glass. There we go. begging for fuss or food or a place to sleep. Rolling through, and then let them relax from there. One more for the lower body. This is a difficult one to get into, but it's worth it. Those inner thighs. It's a strange angle on this one, but essentially you're going to get yourself side on, get the roller vertical so it's parallel to the body, and then get the leg across the top of it so that you're pushing that inner thigh onto the roller. Hands out, so again you're determining how much weight you want to push into it, and then you just roll that leg out and back in, and just play with the angle. There's my tight spot right there. I find if I really turn my toe in here, so it's sort of halfway between the quadricep and the inner thigh, then I get some really tender spots that are worth working through, and spend a good 20-30 seconds on those, and they feel amazing afterwards, especially after my run that I did about an hour ago, because it really is pretty hilly around here. There you go, roll it through, and then once you're done, spin yourself up, bit of amateur breakdancing, pop it down onto your side again, and get that inner thigh just above the knee on top, and just pushing down. The more force you put down into it, the bigger the stretch. So you can actually use your other hand to apply more pressure, and you'll get a deeper massage. But it's just all about that moderation. My advice, if you've got one of these, like I said, start gentle, start cushioned, and start with just 10-15 seconds. Breathe normal, keep the tension out the face, and just be nice to yourself. It doesn't have to be too painful, it doesn't have to be too intense. People do it and it hurts like hell, and then they just leave it in the corner and never use it again, which might be why you're watching this video tonight. You might have had one for ages and think, oh, I'll never get around to using that because I'm terrified of it. But it's a brilliant tool. Of all the pieces of kit in the last 10-15 years that I've been introduced to, I would say this is the most life-changing for me and industry-changing in terms of what it can help achieve with clients from a movement perspective. Everything comes from good movement. So if there's anything that can help us to move a little bit better, then hell, let's use it. One of the other things about foam roller, make sure you stay fairly well hydrated, because you are playing around with a lot of the blood flow and what's called the lymph system and all the fluids that are flowing around. So it's important to stay hydrated. You can get quite dehydrated afterwards. So we're going to sit, and then we're going to spend the last sort of 10 minutes or so just working through the upper body as well. Because hopefully your legs and your feet, etc., are feeling a little bit better for these. You can do the lower back on this. Got to be very careful on the lower back, obviously, because it's a tender little spot. But I quite like to have a good little lie on it here, and I just lift the bum up an inch off the floor and just gently roll back and forward. You might want to support your head if you have problems with your neck or any tightness there. It's not the easiest one to do. You don't have to do it like this, but I really quite enjoy it, and I find I get a lot of benefit from it. You can also come further up and work up into that upper spine here, known as your thoracic spine. And again, on this one, I find if I bring the arms across the body, because I'm stretching the tissues, I get a really deep, targeted bit of foam rolling in there. And again, if you want, you can get yourself to the side of a roller, tilt to one side, and just target different spots as you go. For me, right here in those shoulder blades at the top, that's where they get so tight because I spend a lot of time typing away on the laptop. It's just a really good one to get deep into those. Again, going back to these things, the ball itself, if you want to do this against the wall and stand up and just put the ball in your shoulder blades whilst you stood up, really good way of getting deep, targeted massage into the tissues. You know, just turn slightly to the other side as well. So if you want to join me, just play around with it. That's the fun of foam roller. There's no rigidity to it. You can change the angle, change the intensity, change the surface, change the roller itself, and you find what's right for you, really. So, also under the armpit here, so your lat muscles, the big back muscles here. Not a lot of people know, I sound like Michael Caine, not a lot of people know that, but the big back muscle here actually runs up and it attaches itself on the inside of the arm here, the humerus bone. If it gets tight and gluey, what that can do is it can lead to that turn and that rounding of the arms. You know the bodybuilder, the gym workout guy. They do a lot of chest, so here gets really tight, and then they do a lot of lats because they think, well, the opposite chest is back, but actually it's not the pear muscle, it's not the ant and deck muscle that we talked about before. So what you get is that rounding from too much chest, and then that turn in from the arms, and they get that strange, funny walk with those arms round you. We get that tightness here again because we spend time with our arms at a desk on a computer, or we spend our time driving, or whatever. It's just a common part of your life now. So if you want to target it, get it down on the floor here, get one arm out and point the fingers away, and you're just going to take the arm up and over and just pop it in there, just below the armpit. Again, just play with it and just roll forwards and backwards and see if there's any difference. I know there is for me. He is really quite tender, and I have to be very gentle on this bit. And again, if you want to increase it, you can use one leg. So if you take the back leg, the left leg here, lift and just start to roll, you'll find you get through those tight spots, top to bottom. You can even come up into the back of the arm and carry on going, because the back of the triceps can be quite tight. So again, this is where I need to be careful not to push it too hard, because that's pretty tender for me. And just roll back and forth there. Like I said, it's quite tiring because you're doing a lot of the work. You're having to propel yourself backwards and forwards all the time. So you will find sometimes that your wrists, your arms can get a little bit tired from lifting your body weight up and rolling you through. And then if I come a little bit further down here where the lat attaches down, right down into the sort of the middle lower portion of the back, again I've got some more tight spots there, so it's worth working through those. Sometimes you'll feel like I can feel now, it feels like bubble wrap. You can feel it popping almost as you go through. That way you know you're getting into those fascia and those fibres, and you're pulling them apart like a rolling pin through dirt. Rolling through there. Spin them onto the side. So again, fingers pointing away. I'm going to move this one out of the way and get that right under the armpit and just roll back and forth. See what you've got there, see if there's any tight bits. There we go, good stuff. And then from there, just roll up and down. And then if you keep going, like I said, further down into the lat, you'll see if there's any tighter bits down here. Again, I know that mine are around about there, and you can roll forwards and backwards, play with them a little bit. See what you've got there. Good stuff. And work them through. Just a nice way of getting deep into those tight spots. Perfect. And then let them relax from there. You can get the chest muscles into it as well. Harder, and again, much more effective with the ball ones here because you can get deep into the tissues. But if you've just got the roller, it is possible to lie it vertically and come down, arm across at 90 degrees. So you're just getting it in and around the shoulder and just work through from here. That's quite a nice one. Just to get in and around where it attaches over the shoulder joint. It's not the easiest one to get at. I will definitely grant you that. If I bring it in and get the weight in here and pop the arm out, then I find I can get a bit more into it, but that's more painful. So you've got to listen to the body and decide what's right for you. And just roll in through there. Whew, that's definitely tender. And as I said, we can try it on the other side. So you can have 90 degrees, or you can have the arm out and more weight into it if you want to get a deeper bit of stretch and massage into those chest muscles. Again, these get really quite tender and tight because of all our time at a desk, all our time behind the wheel. So they're worth working through. With these ones, it's actually a bit easier than rolling on the floor. You can just hold it and you can just massage it into the attachment points just while you're sat up. Makes it a lot more convenient. So if you are serious about really getting good at these, a roller and a ball of some description, I think this one's on Amazon for about, I don't know, 20 quid, something like that. They're really quite worthwhile to have that mixed combination in there for you. And then I'm going to give you a couple to finish. So roll into the big ball for this one, because this is super nice one. This isn't so much as a roll as a lie down. So you can literally, the longer ones, you can do it with the shorter one as well. Sit the bum on the one end, pop yourself down here, head supported, and just drop the arms out to the side and just roll the full length of the spine. Like I said, you can do it with the short one. It's just not quite as nice because you'll only have the upper portion of the spine on and the bum's not necessarily supported in the same spot. But this is just quite a joyously relaxing one. This is so you can just stay here and just never move. But I'm going to move because I want to show you one more to finish today. And that's to finish off with the glute muscles, just in case you're a tight ass. You'll know you're a tight ass because you won't be able to get your wallet out at the bar if you're ever allowed to go. So again, you can use this, or really good with the ball ones because you can get deep into it. But I'll show you the standard foam roller because that might be what you've got. So you can get the bum muscle in there, just angle your body slightly to the outside and then just bring that leg up and just roll forwards, and you might find some little tight spots in what's called your gluteus medius and minimus, and backwards, forwards, just if you've got any tender spots there, and then back from there. Or you can get more into the main glute muscle by just sitting a bit more straight on and just rolling forwards and backwards. Mine are really tight, so when I do this I can feel that flicking sensation that you get when the tendons are kind of separating because they're so tight and tender on these. But it's a really good way of doing it. My advice, get one, stick the telly on. When you're watching the telly in the evening, just get the roller out and just get in the habit of rolling whilst you're watching the telly. Half an hour before bed, make a massive, massive difference. Get up in the morning, put breakfast news on, sit and do 30 minutes of foam rolling, you will not regret it. And if you want to do it pre-workout, post-workout, then that's great too, but just anything just to get that extra mobility in there. Let's swap to the other leg and just into any tight spots like that one. Spend a bit of time working around them, but remember, mild discomfort, 30 seconds or so, never too painful, just always nice, gentle, relaxed work, just like your stretches. Don't need to force it. We put too much tension into a muscle, it'll get tight, not loose. So we just want to gently ease it into those new positions, and then I'm going to finish it off a little bit straighter, so just getting deep into those glute muscles. And again, I can feel it, just that tightness, just flicking over that one spot. So I'm going to target the work there. But as you notice, just steady breathing all the way through, nice, easy, never too fast, never too slow. Like we said, you can find a tight spot and you can just hold it there. So if I find a tender patch here, I can just stay there. And what you'll probably notice as you hold the spots, if you want to go for this version of them, is that you'll notice the pain decrease gradually as you go. So once you get to about half of what it was before, that's cool. You can work onto another spot and do the same. I like to tend to just move. I feel it helps me a little bit more. But if you want to do that targeted stuff, just hold that spot and just wait for the pain to decrease by about 50% of what it was. And then just carry on moving and find some different spots from there. There you go, guys. That is pretty much every muscle you own, or certainly a lot of the tight ones that you own. And that's the hows, whys and whens of a foam roller. Any questions you've got, feel free to pop them on the video after this, or just get in touch. I'll be happy to answer them. And I'll see you Wednesday for a more traditional strength and flexibility workout. In the meantime, stay balanced. Cheers.